It is a TCO Studios Tuesday, 9 to noon. Good morning. It's Paul Allen, mad producer by my side at Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center, the Minnesota Vikings facility in Eagan, Minnesota. Maxwell Fuller produces 9 to noon from the 651 Carpets Plus studios. And I'm Paul Allen. Welcome to a day of play at TCO, where Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, joins us at 11 a.m. each and every Tuesday. You'll hear the head coach for the Vikings with 9 to noon, beginning at 11 o'clock. But first, we are going to hear from this guy.
Caleb Williams gets the snap. Caleb Williams in trouble, and Danielle Hunter can't get him down. Williams escapes to the right, throws downfield, and intercepted by Lassiter. Runs upfield, 45, and he's out of bounds inside the 45-yard line. The rookie with his first INT.
That is the voice of Marc Vandermeer, the play-by-play voice, the Vox for the Houston Texans for 2 decades plus. In fact, Marc has been the only play-by-play voice in the history of Texans football there, describing a Kamari Lassiter interception. That's a second-round rookie from Georgia. And Lassiter and the Texans will be in town this weekend for a noon boom against the undefeated Minnesota Vikings. And the Vox joins us now. Marc, a 2-0 start, my man, and if Tank Dell doesn't drop that deep centerpiece, I think you guys blow out the Bears. What about you, and good morning?
Good morning, Paul. Yeah, I think that would have obviously helped, and not fumbling inside the 5 in the fourth quarter, that would have also helped make the score a little more lopsided, but it is what it is. You know, it's the NFL. We come down to the wire in these things, and it's exciting. The Texans have played a lot of these games since DeMeco Ryans has been the head coach. They've won most of them, and I think that speaks to their ability to stick together, make big plays in the clutch. They really enjoy being around each other and playing with each other, and that was another example on Sunday night.
What are you liking about DeMeco Ryans and the way he handles like conflict when you get bounced from the postseason, or prosperity, which he's experienced a lot as head coach of the Texans?
Well, at his introductory press conference, I don't know if I told you this before, but he was talking about, I want my guys to be better men, better husbands, better fathers. And this is more important than anything because that's going to enable us to win games. And it's just going to help them in life. And I think the guys really believe that. I mean, DeMeco cares about them. The environment here is so positive. Tuesdays, they have the family night dinners where, it's a late night with Game Plan Tuesday with the coaches. You know how that goes at the facility and everything. So he brings in the families for dinner for a couple of hours and tells the guys to spend some time with the kids. Fridays, obviously, kicks everybody out. Go pick up your kids from school. Go be with your wife. Date night Friday. He wants them to have lives in addition to being great football people, whether it's players, coaches, whatever. And I think that helps, when you're at the moment of truth in these games or in whatever hardship you're going through in the NFL, I think it really helps. And he just has this positive environment, Paul. He wants to play with great intensity, with an edge, yet he wants everybody to be upbeat and be there for each other.
And that's a lot of the things you just laid out, Marc, are things that we hear here at the Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center into the third year with Kevin O'Connell. And whether it's winning 13 games in your first year or winning 7 while spinning through 4 quarterbacks or being undefeated this year, is if I'm reading this right, is Ryans and his staff, and to a certain extent the players, they're the same after they beat somebody by 10 to 20 or they lose to somebody by 10 to 20, because culture can be such an overused, trite word in sports. But here at this facility and with this team, since O'Connell took over, the culture completely changed. And it sounds like it's the same way with Houston.
Yeah, and I think you give Nick Caserio credit here, too, and the McNairs, of course, because you look at what Nick was able to put together as far as players, the individuals he was looking at, not just as athletes, but as people, and the drafts that he had prior to DeMeco getting here. Then you add in the DeMeco influence and the players they've acquired since, and the whole thing adds up to what you're describing. So, I know fans sometimes don't want to talk about that. They want to hear about other things, and I get it. And sometimes you could say, well, culture is as good as your quarterback. But I don't believe that's entirely true. I think certainly great quarterback play is going to help. But you're right. You're always going to run into situations in this league where it's difficult, where you're not winning, where look what happened with the Eagles last night and Jalen Hurts. They'll have to work their way through that. It just happens in this league. So it's good to have guys who can stick together.
This is Marc Vandermeer, the play-by-play voice for the Houston Texans, one of the better in the National Football League. And via Twitter, @Texans Voice. You can get a lot of intel up to the game. Mark does a really good job with Twitter and social media, including his coach's show with D'Amico Ryans. That's atop his Twitter feed if you'd like to listen to it. It is @Texans Voice. And Mr. Vandermeer's with us now. How well have you gotten to know Stefon Diggs?
Yeah, just around the building, really, Paul. I haven't really sat down with him too much personally. I mean, I'm still making my way through the guys we acquired last year. I have Jimmy Ward on a show today. I've interviewed him before. I haven't had an interview with Diggs where I really just sat down, but just here and there. And, Nico Collins got here in 21, so I know him better. Damian Pierce, guys like that. But I can tell you this about Diggs. I mean, he's just one of the guys here. I mean, they really enjoy being around him. The wide receivers are always cutting it up. They've got a good bond going. Everyone was asking in the offseason, who's the number one guy? Well, it's clear the number one guy is actually Nico Collins right now. But Diggs in the first game had as many catches, and he had 2 touchdown receptions, just not a ton of yards. And that's kind of how I figured it would go, that Nico would lead them in yards, maybe not receptions, but maybe it turns out to be that way. And Diggs would have a lot of catches, and he would score, and Tank Dell would just make big plays. And that's how it's going to go with those big three, as we call them here. But they've got other weapons. They call it a 5-headed monster with Joe Mixon and Dalton Schultz, and then they have other guys who want to be part of that mix as well. There are a lot of places to go with the football here, and Diggs is just one of them.
Yeah, and Mixon was on the wrong side of that hip drop where T.J. Edwards absolutely will get fined for it, even though it wasn't flagged. And so you're sweating Mixon. We're up here sweating Justin Jefferson and Joe Mixon. I mean, what a bruising back behind those big tackles and some athletic players in the center of your line. That was a nice move getting Joe Mixon. You think he'll be okay this weekend?
I hope he's okay. When I first met him, and it was the off season, you sign him or you acquire him, and I just thought he's taller than I thought. He's a big guy. A lot of these backs they're big, but they're not that tall. He's tall, and he's so physical, like you said. Against the Colts, he was just pinballing off of guys and getting extra yards, had 159 in that game. Didn't go as well against Chicago with their front. They were looking for it all night long. Damian Pierce did not play against the Bears, and he had a few good runs in the Colts game. But I like Cam Akers, Paul. Cam Akers came in here, another Achilles recovery, and in the preseason, he was their best back. Every time he got into the game, there was some electricity, and even the other night, before the fumble, there was some electricity, there was some production. So I think if they can get Cam Akers going with whatever else they're able to put together with the ground game, that's really going to help. But it all starts with Stroud. Last year, they won without a great running game. Devin Singletary did better than Pierce as Singletary became the featured back, but it was Stroud's arm that carried them because he can throw the ball with the needed velocity at all times. It feels like, I got to take a little bit off this, fine. I got to drill this one, okay, fine. He's got all the pitches, if you will. We sometimes use that. He can make all the throws cliche too easily, but he can really do it.
Well, you mentioned that monster, Nico Collins, and apologies from yours truly up here in the cornfields. I'm not a big fantasy football guy, so I haven't really gone deep diving on Nico Collins and the career he's had. I know he missed some games in 2022. I know he's from Michigan, and I know he had 8 touchdowns last year. My man's out here averaging 126 a game. And when I was watching on Sunday night, has he always been this beastly? Has he always been this tough to cover?
No, he has not always been this beastly. He's a COVID college guy, so he joins the team in 21. The Texans are highly challenged. They got Tyrod Taylor and Davis Mills playing that year with David Culley coaching, and he does some things. You see some flashes. You can see the potential, but he did what a lot of guys don't do. He got better. And I know you feel this way too, Paul. The guys who come into the league, no matter what you were in college, you have to get better. Obviously, C.J. Stroud has to get better. Everybody's got to improve and work on their game. If you don't, you're going nowhere. He worked on it hard. He was mic'd up for the opener against the Colts. He made a play, and he said to the opponent, that's weight room, because he had bodied the guy or whatever it was as a physical play. And, he spent some time in the weight room. He's a tall, massive figure as a receiver. He kind of reminds me of A.J. Green a little bit. And last year erupted, 1,300 yards nearly, really great season. This year off to a terrific start, leads the league in receiving yards. He is a beast, and he's a gentle giant, too, when you talk to him. I've actually joked with him. Where's your diva? You need a little more diva in you, or maybe not. I'm hoping he doesn't get too much. But he's such a humble guy. On the field, between the lines, the switch goes on, and he makes plays, and he's beastly.
There's a Stephon Diggs joke somewhere in there that we're going to pull back on because he's new to the Texans covenant and everything's working out beautifully, as Marc Vandermeer knows. The 2-decade-plus Vox down Houston way at Texans Voice via Twitter. He's kind enough to join us to begin 9 to noon on a Tuesday from Twin Cities Orthopedics Performance Center, a practice facility where Danielle Hunter used to roam. And now he's with the Houston Texans. How is Danielle playing, Mark?
Well, great. I mean, the other night, the highlight you described, Williams got away. He grabbed a hold of, it looked like the jersey on the fly, but it was the orange undershirt of the jersey, and it's just started to tear. I thought we were going to have an orange string from sideline to sideline for a moment there. But he got to him another time and a half for a sack, and just his presence along the line. I mean, you guys know this better than anybody, what he can do as far as opening things up for other people. If you have to double him, somebody has to focus on him, and maybe a D tackle slides through. In the first game against the Colts, the defensive tackles had the sacks, and Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. didn't have any. Well, this game, everybody feasted. They had 7 sacks. 6 different players had the 7 sacks. That's the first time in franchise history that's happened. And I think you might feel this way too, Paul. It's great to have guys who can sack the quarterback a lot, like Danielle, but when you have it coming from all over the place, that's great. When it's a band, when it's an ensemble, when it's Fleetwood Mac or the Eagles as opposed to, one lead singer or 2, this is really good when you get after it that way because it's harder to game plan against. And Danielle is a part of it. To have him playing football in this town, he came to the playoff game as a fan last year when the Texans beat the brakes off the Cleveland Browns, and he loves being in the building back in Houston, where he's from, and he signs with the team in the offseason. It could not go much better from a storybook standpoint.
All right, so off the band analogy, Fleetwood Mac. So Will Anderson Jr. would be Stevie Nicks. Danielle would be Lindsey Buckingham. So who would be Mick Fleetwood? Is that Jerry Hughes? I mean, he's in his 15th year from TCU. Holy cow. Or is it Mario Edwards?
Yeah, but he would have to be McVie then, because I'm going with the vocalists, because with these bands like the Eagles and Fleetwood Mac, it doesn't matter who's singing. It always sounds like the band. You know what I'm saying?
That's a good point.
So we can debate this all day long. I love this kind of stuff with the classic rock. I think, Jerry's doing fine. They signed Jerry because they needed that insurance. Derek Barnett is a guy that gets a lot of focus. They signed him during the year last year. The Eagles let him go for some reason. He was huge for the Texans down the stretch because Will Anderson Jr. was banged up, and so was our buddy Jonathan Grenard. And I love JG. I hope he's listening. I mean, I miss JG. I just seen him around. He's a great guy, and he played really well here for us last year. Stayed healthy. Obviously got the contract. Good for him. It'll be fun to see him. But I think that, when you look around and see what they've got here, it's a nice mix of players. Barnett was a part of it, and they got pass rush last year. I think they're going to get even more this year with this group.
Well, Grenard's been okay here. He's been fine. He gets a fair amount of attention. But Blake Cashman is the one stealing the show, man. I mean, he just had 13 tackles and a sack and 3 passes defensed. 1 led to an interception. Did you notice Blake kind of fully coming together last year, or has he always been kind of a crafty, savvy player?
Well, you know what he is? He's one of these guys. If he's healthy, he's going to make plays, period. That's it. There are certain players like that. Oh, he's available. He's healthy. He's not nursing some kind of injury that we don't know about or we might know about, but it's slowing him down. If Cashman's healthy, he's a monster. He's going to make plays. He's super fast. He can cover guys. He can get sacks. He's smart. He's in the right place. And he finally stayed healthy, not even for the whole season last year, Paul. I mean, he wasn't healthy entirely through 17 games, but when he was out there, he was magnificent. And you saw it in training camp in 2023 because you have Stroud here, and he's picking off Stroud, and he's making plays, and you're thinking, that looks like the best linebacker on this field right now. And I think he was for a long time. So it didn't surprise me to see what he did last week against the 49ers. He's going to be one to deal with. And I hope the Texans adjust well when they're dealing with the former players that we enjoyed watching here with Cashman and Grenard.
Other than for returns, Do I need Robert Woods on the game calling depth chart?
Oh, yeah, you do. Because Robert Woods, so last week, kickoff returns because no Dameon Pierce. And Robert Woods is one of those guys, if you're in a game where you have to throw it a lot, and, 3rd and 8, Robert Woods, reliable Robert, I call him. You look at what he's done in this league. He's got some pelts on the wall. And a lot of people thought in the offseason, and by people, I mean media, fans, outsiders, whatever, I don't know if Robert's going to make the team. I thought Robert's a virtual lock to make this team because I know he's so reliable for C.J. Stroud. He's always going to run the right route. He knows where to find him. I know they have a lot of pass catchers. They kept 7 receivers. When we talk about, everybody's talking about their 53 during camp, and these are what the talk shows are about, and I get it. And you usually say 6 receivers. Well, they went with 7 because they have Steven Sims, outstanding return man, and the rest of the guys we talk about, Xavier Hutchinson's another one that you want to give attention to, John Mechie III, who has not been up yet. He's been not dressing on game day, but he'll be there at some point. Guys get hurt, whatever, he'll be available. So I would definitely get ready for some Robert Woods. Not as much as the other guys, but he will be heard from this year.
I appreciate it, my brother. Have a wonderful day. I'll see you at U.S. Bank Stadium over the weekend, okay?
Looking forward to it. Don't want to hear too much Skol, but I got a feeling it's going to be one of those tight games again.
Oh, it's going to be fantastic. Couple of undefeated teams. All they do is sack the quarterback. Our quarterback is a veteran playing well. C.J. Stroud's the absolute bomb. Diggsy and Daniil back in town to go against Cashman and Grenada. This is going to be fantastic. You got gas mask guy at left tackle. I mean, he's getting his hands on everybody and nobody can get around him. This is going to be phenomenal.
Gas mask guy. I have not heard that one. Okay, I know what you're referring to. It's all right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, Paul. It's going to be great, and I can't wait to see you, my friend.
I appreciate you, man. See you later, bud.
All right, thanks. Bye.
Marc Vandermeer, the 2-decade-plus Vox for the Houston Texans, the only voice in the history of Texans football. That's pretty cool. At Texans Voice, a lot of good Texans-related content, including the Coaches Show that he does with D'Amico Ryans. He did that yesterday, if you'd like to listen to that. Max Fuller guides the Great Ship Love Covenant. Nordo is here with yours truly, Paul Allen, from the Vikings Entertainment Network and TCO Studios, and courtesy of TimberTech and TimberTech.com. What's on deck 9 to noon includes the Sultan of Smug around the corner. After that, Vikes Bites, then the Scribe at 10 o'clock, then Kevin O'Connell at 11 o'clock for an elongated Tuesday conversation with the coach right here on your home for Vikings football, FM 100.3 KFAN.
And forth, and here's the snap. Willis looks, throws, right side, got a snap, down the sidelines, into the end zone, Dontavian Wicks, and the Packers, no flags, lead it by the score of 9-0.
Here comes David Sinykin, the Sultan of Smug, and the host of Packer Preview each and every Sunday on KFAN, and also the co-host of Border Battle with yours truly. That's about a 20-year piece. And his Green Bay Packers beat the Indianapolis Colts over the weekend, and super special Cinny joins us now. Sorry about yesterday. That was my fault, man. Sorry about that.
Hey, it's all good, PA. What's happening, bud?
Things are well. How'd you win with Willis at quarterback?
Just a really good game plan. Obviously everybody and their mother knew that Green Bay was going to run the football. It was unbelievable how effectively they did it. I mean, PA, 164 yards rushing in the first quarter. 164 yards rushing, 230 by halftime. I mean, they had no way to stop it, and that obviously made things much easier for Malik Willis, who threw then when he wanted to rather than when he needed to, and ultimately, he threw the ball 14 times all day, completed 12, and a passer rating for about $120, and was 7 for 8 on third downs for like 95 yards and a touchdown. Really nice touchdown pass. Could have been a pick six if it had a little less steam on it. It was really close, but he got it to Dontavian Wicks. had a nice 50-50 ball he threw up to Romeo Dobbs, who came down with it. So Matt LaFleur crafted a game plan where 6 guys carried the ball in the first quarter. A lot of motion, a lot of misdirection. The Colts had no answers, and it made things really easy for Malik Willis.
Were you concerned late? Because I didn't watch any of the game, and I played box score and highlight catch-up, but a friend of mine was at the game and said it got a little dicey late, and I'm like, how? I mean, calling the Vikings game, I kept looking at the score, and it was like something to 3, something to 3, something to 3. I'm like, how the hell did this thing did it get dicey?
A little bit. Missed field goal to put them up 2 scores would have made it a lot less dicey, but when Narveson missed a field goal, it stays a one-possession game. You know, in part, LaFleur got, you could say, conservative in the second half and didn't roll out as many exotic looks in the running game and just basically tried to run the clock out. Part of that also was the offense had been on the field for what turned out to be 40 minutes on the second hottest day ever at Lambeau Field. I mean, it was steamy out there. We had 3 linemen vomiting, 2 on the sideline, 1 on the ball. So I think the offense was gassed in the second half, and it allowed Indy to just kind of stick around a little bit. Yeah, I mean, he had a chance to throw a Hail Mary at the end of the game, so I guess you could say it got dicey, but, you know, I was never sitting there sweating it out. The defense had answers for Anthony Richardson. He looked terrible throughout the day, and Green Bay, for the second straight week, kept a big play quarterback who the week before had thrown 50-yard passes 3 times. No big explosive plays, no big plays with the running game. Let him try to dink and dunk, and inexplicably, PA, after a big third quarter for Jonathan Taylor, where he got over 100 yards for the game, he was on the sidelines the fourth quarter. He was not out there as they were in comeback mode. I don't really understand it, but I thank Shane Sinykin and the Colts offensive staff for leaving the big play running back on the bench.
At TC Head Cheese, super special Cinny, at TC Head Cheese via the X machine. Do you think Love's going to play in a couple of weeks from Sunday against the Purple?
Man, I hope so. I don't know. I've seen conflicting reports. You know, some say he was really close to playing this past Sunday, which seems really hard to believe. I don't think he'll play again this Sunday. I think the goal is to have him ready for the Vikings, but I've seen many reports that are looking at week 5 against the Rams as the week he comes back. So ultimately, yeah, division game against the Red Hot Purple would be great to have him, but you also don't want to take a chance at damaging the rest of the season. There's a long way to go. But man, I certainly hope to see him out there week 4.
Well, you say about David Sinykin, you say the and almost flippantly the Red Hot Purple. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but don't you see it as the Vikings catching lightning in a bottle, right? I mean, after all, it was the Giants and Daniel Jones and the Niners were down McCaffrey. I mean, you do believe they're catching lightning in a bottle, right?
No, you're not going to catch me with that one, PA. That's a big boy win on Sunday against a team that you guys just own. I mean, what? They haven't won a game in this state since the early 90s. It's crazy how the Vikings own the 49ers. I was there for the game last year. No, that's a win that opens people's eyes. I don't care. We know what Jordan Mason did in week 1. Yes, there may be a drop-off from McCaffrey, but that was not something where you go, well, the Vikes beat him without McCaffrey. No, I mean, I had the game up. I had both games going simultaneously. I watched a good chunk of the Vikings game. They dominated the line of scrimmage. Brian Flores is a master tactician, man. He knows how to make Brock Purdy completely uncomfortable, and you have to be impressed with that. Now, I'm impressed with what the Vikings have done through week 2, and obviously Darnold has looked the part. Obviously, it's a long season, but no, the Vikings are, I think, demonstrating early that all those preseason prognostications can go out the window. They're serious about competing this year.
Maybe the point spread changed, and it's not like point spreads dictate outcomes, but at last check, your juicy squad was listed as underdogs against the winless Tennessee Titans. Is that still accurate?
I think they opened at 2-point dogs. It might be 1 now, but I think that's as it should be. I think Green Bay is going to be hard-pressed to beat Tennessee. That's a much tougher defense. They can't rely on the run against that front. If Malik Willis is the quarterback, he's going to have to contribute a lot more against Tennessee. It's a team that, you know, had the Bears up 17 donut at halftime, and it's just their quarterback imploding at the end of games. I don't know if Green Bay can count on Will Levis making another brain fart at the end of a game. I think Green Bay is going to be up against it this Sunday against a desperate team on the road. Yeah, it's the revenge game for Willis. and even the rookie kicker. But it's going to be a tough task. My goal was to split the 2 AFC games with Willis starting. We got one in our back pocket. I'm excited to see what LaFleur has in store, as well as Jeff Hafley, whose defense leads the league in takeaways, has 5 picks, which also leads the league. They can make things difficult for Levis, but no, I think Green Bay should be underdogs going down to Tennessee with Malik Willis at quarterback.
Time for 2 more for the Sultan of Smug, David Sinykin at TC Head Cheese via Twitter. Who's your best overall wide receiver and why? Like if it was a weird hypothetical situation where it's like, hey, of all these 4, you can only keep one. Is it absolutely Reed?
I would vote for Reed, and I'd put Dobbs right next to him. I think Wicks has a lot of upside, as does Watson if he can stay healthy, but I think Reed is the most talented wide receiver. He's got the speed. He's got the moves. He can hurt you as a ball carrier as well. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. I just think he's the one, if you have a game breaker, and that might be a bit strong for him at this point in his career, I think he has the biggest chance to be a game breaker offensively for the Packers offense.
Last one. What'd you think of Anthony Richardson?
He had a rough day, really rough day. I don't know. I feel like they didn't do him a lot of favors, as I said, by not giving him Jonathan Taylor in the fourth quarter when they tried to come back. But he really struggles to make throws out of the pocket. He's much better when he's out on the move. I think he has real strong upside. I think he could be a really good player. But he's played like 20 games since high school. He started for 1 year at Florida. He's only started 6 games in the NFL, and he's got a ways to go to figure out how to use his amazing gifts. I mean, he's built like Cam Newton, 6'4", 250. He's just a load to bring down, but he has a lot of learning to do, and there's going to be a lot of L's on that squad until he figures out how to play.
What if the Vikings beat Houston and go 3-0, and your squad loses to Tennessee and is 1-2? It's going to be a big one at Lambeau Field, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually favor you guys this week. Houston has not impressed me through 2 weeks, and I think they're coming in to a buzzsaw this week. So I do think you guys will be 3-0. And if we're 1-2 with Malik Willis on the field against you guys week 4, there's a really good chance you guys are going to be 4-0. But guess what? I will not be conceding the division if you guys are 4-0 and we're 1-3. There's a long way to go. We'll get our quarterback back, and 3-6 last year, everybody was burying the pack. So let's just let this thing play out. But yeah, you guys should be excited about the start, and I really hope our quarterback plays week 4, because that'd be a really good early litmus test, I think, for both teams. Early October game or late September at Lambeau Field between our 2 squads.
Well, David, before we depart, you're an elite football mind. What is not impressing you about Houston? I mean, because when Mixon plays, they run well, and when Mixon plays, the play action to Collins and Diggs and Dell and Schultz and this rookie Ohio State tight end is pretty good. Their tackles are each 6'5", 320, and they're not making mistakes. They're speedy on defense with a bunch of sacks. What are you not liking?
I don't know. I saw them, almost lose to Indianapolis against. That's just not a very good team. I know they were on the road, but they gave up a lot of points to that Colts team, a lot of big plays to that Colts team. As I said, 3 pass plays of over 50 yards. I'm not sure their secondary is all that. I just think they're still learning how to win, and I think there's so much love for that team heading into this season, and they're in a terrible division that they're the only team that's won a game, I think, in that division so far. But I'm just not sold. I don't love their running game. I know Indy sold out on the pass, allowing Mixon to have a big day, but I just don't think that running game's all that great. Yes, Stroud's the real deal, great stable of pass catchers. They're building something, and they're going to be great for a long time. I'm not sure they're ready to go on the road into that environment with everybody patting their backs for being 2-0. I just think it sets up nice for you guys to make a follow-up statement to what you did last week and show the league, yeah, we're here. Our quarterback knows what he's doing. Our coach presses all the right buttons, and our defensive coach might be the best in the biz.
That's hyperbole, and you're playing the reverse psychology card, really hoping that we lose.
Not at all, man.
We get blown out and have locker room consternation and coach consternation. So I know what you're doing here. So bad luck to your squad.
I've been a Flow fan for a long time. I wanted us to grab him a few years ago, and I've always been a big fan of what that guy can do.
I appreciate you, brother. Is Jackson getting along well in Bloomington, Indiana?
Yep, Jackson and baby sister Allie. I'm heading down for Dad's weekend this weekend, so I'll get to see them both.
That's terrific. All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
Have a good week, pal.
You too. David Sinykin at TC Head Cheese. That's the border battle, courtesy of 9 to Noon, which is home to Vikes Bites and the potential for your inclusion in the Kevin O'Connell conversation 90 minutes from now. Stay tuned and figure out what that means when we return to the TCO studios as part of the Vikings Entertainment Network at FM 100.3 KFAN.
Host of the Bad Friends podcast and comedian Andrew Santino is adding a third show when he stops by the Pantages Theater in February on his Freeze Peach Tour. Tickets for this show are on sale now. For full details, head over to KFAN.com, keyword calendar.
Appreciate you, Mr. Maxwell Fuller, and we appreciate everybody listening to 9 to Noon. Welcome back. This can be your shiny toy leader. This is a practice facility for a team that plays in a palatial purple paradise where you get people like Greg Papa, the play-by-play voice for the San Francisco 49ers, who was nice enough to join the first segment of Vikings Football Sunday with us and yours truly. And, he's said it multiple times, but he said it again Sunday because the 49ers were here a couple of years ago for joint practices. And he's like, this facility is so accommodating and it's so beautiful. It's such a shiny, wonderful toy. Likewise for US Bank Stadium. Well, that, also there are players who are of the shiny toy variety where the way they look and their image and the way they do their socks and the things like Jalen Hurts, man, last night took off his helmet. My man had to have had $150,000 in earrings in his lobes. Yeah, it was unbelievable, the size and the clarity and the brilliance of those earrings. And why I bring that up is because between segments, Nordo and I are looking at a picture of an old school Minnesota Viking on the television screen here in the radio studio at the Vikings Entertainment Network. And while we can't figure out exactly who it is, Nordo's like, that's like what a football player looks like. It's got scraggly hair. You have a beard that hasn't been, that has not been well shaped or well groomed. The eye black is about 2 inches thick underneath each eye. And, my man's out there trying to make a living playing football. And then in the off season, he might work for a construction company and then get ready for whatever training camp was then and roll into the season. And that's not necessarily the case now for a lot of players. Blake Cashman has some old school football look to him. If you think like Blake Cashman, Jack Youngblood from back in the days with the LA Rams. So,
well, once in a while you get a neck roll in the mix, don't you?
Yeah, Lorenzo Neal. So Nordo and Lorenzo Neal, the fullback for the Chargers. He's the last one I can remember to wear a neck roll. So then Nordo and I just went through pictures. I'm like, well, pull up John Matuzak, pull up Mean Joe Green, pull up Dwight White and Art Shell, players like that. And we've been looking at pictures of old school football players. Oh, you know what? Okay, here, and you know who he is. I'm not exactly sure you know who he looks like. Search Snake Stabler. God rest his soul.
Oh, yeah, Kenny.
Okay. Now, this was a quarterback who won Super Bowl. Look at the lamb chops.
Oh, how beautiful is that?
But look at him when he was with John Madden in his Raider days. And, this was a southpaw with scraggly hair.
Oh, beautiful.
He threw ducks. I mean, Kenny the Snake Stabler did not have a rocket for an arm, but he had Art Shell in front of him. He had wonderful wide receivers. One of them was Fred Biletnikoff in his fax machine. I think Dave Casper was a tight end.
Yeah.
And this was a quarterback who went to a bunch of Super Bowls and was one of the toughest in the game. But if you look at him, the first thing you're going to ask is, so what night is bingo night at the VFW again, Ken? B-I-N-G-O. So it's so crazy. Now, granted, decades change and people change and people evolve and things become more readily available for football players than they were then, specifically money.
Sure.
But look at
training. Oh, look at that guy.
Kenny the Snake Stabler not not the personification of what old school scraggly football used to look like, and it was the bomb.
He's a beautiful creature. There's no doubt about that. But this is why the NFL is what it is today. Mm-hmm. I've said it before, like Baby Nordo in the late 80s, growing up, and I'd flip on the TV, and instead of cartoons, there'd be like an hour and a half of like NFL films related programming. Yeah. And you're watching and you're hearing John Facenda and the old Zabel family productions and all of that. These were mythical gods to young sports fans. And this is why the NFL is the juggernaut it is today, because you're right. You know, in the summer now, Kenny Snabler was somewhere in like West Hollywood in the off season, but some of these guys are out like helping build houses and working in factories in the off season, and then they just roll in and every game looked like some semblance of a bar fight. Like these guys were absolute just monsters, and it was awesome. Baby Nordo growing up seeing those guys, I loved it.
When you were Baby Nordo in Fancato, and you were, you know, and this is off of the way you have shaped things, so I ain't sitting here being cracking wise or anything.
Sure.
You, you were looking for breakfast, and it was a half of a Spam can that was in the refrigerator.
We did eat Spam, yep.
SpaghettiOs, not heated, out of a can for lunch maybe. And then
done that many times.
And then we'll deal with dinner. And you're sitting in front of the television waiting for, let's say, Sesame Street or Schoolhouse Rock, where you'd hear my man say, I'm just a bill sitting on Capitol Hill. And then all of a sudden, Steve Sable's NFL Films comes on, and you hear, the autumn wind is a pirate, blustering in from sea. With a rollicking song he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously. His face is weather-beaten. He wears a hooded sash, with a silver hat about his head and a bristling black mustache. It's the autumn wind is a pirate. It's a raider.
It's the best. And when they'd have, whether it was Steel Town or it was here with the Purple People Eaters.
I thought Steel Town was the show you used to watch with like Boobon and Thomas the Train.
But the fog, like the breath, you could see their breath on a cold winter day and seeing the collisions. Yeah. And they're just exhausted out there, but they keep in the fight. And the slow motion with the original NFL film style music. Yeah. I am a fan today because of that, and going to camp and sticking, when I could stick my arm through the chain link fence. Now there's so many barriers. And like Chris Dolman would give me a high five as he left training camp practice. That's why I'm a Rube today. I'm an adult child because of guys like Kenny the Snake Stabler looking like they just got off the third shift doing machine work and then winning Super Bowls. That's amazing.
Now John Facenda, God rest his soul, he was the one, and we've played at 9 to noon before, to read The Autumn Wind, where the autumn wind is a pirate blustering in from sea. I've never taken time to read the words. I mean, this is a masterpiece. The autumn wind is a pirate blustering in from sea. It's the Raiders fight song. With a rollicking song, he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously. His face is weather-beaten. He wears a hooded sash with a silver hat about his head and a bristling black mustache. He growls as he storms the country, a villain big and bold. And the tree... Hold on, I'm sorry. Who writes this? This is brilliant. He growls as he storms the country, a villain big and bold. All the trees shake and quiver and quake as he robs them of their gold. The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won.
It's one of the all-time great poets.
Oh man, it's artwork. It was written by a poet.
Yes,
I can't find the name, but the score was by a guy named Sam Spence. I know that. It doesn't matter who wrote it, but I think it was written by a poet. The Autumn Wind. And by the way, if you want to write something up, or if you got something on your head, on your mind that is inside your head, go on to the free iHeartRadio app and the Talkback feature, and leave a question for Kevin O'Connell. We did a text last week, but we are going to play some talkbacks. So we're going to play a talkback a week. It's a Talkback Tuesday.
Steve Sable actually wrote the poem himself, by the way.
Steve Sable, wow.
Steve Sable, and then you mentioned
Ed Sable, his father. Was
Sam Spence was the guy that did the scoring.
Was the founder of NFL Films. Then Steve took over after that. Steve Sable wrote that. That is just
So how
brilliant.
old was Steve in the 74?
He's got to be in his 30s.
Yeah, probably at that time.
30s.
Wow.
Yeah, little did he know. And then you find Facenda, and then all of a sudden the autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. So free iHeartRadio app on the microphone, and you have 30 seconds. A little shorter be cool. But if you got something for like 15, 30 seconds for Kevin O'Connell, Nordo's going to vet those out, and we're going to choose one and play one for Kevin O'Connell somewhere during the 11 to, I think last week he joined us for 30 minutes. First week it was like 25. So it's an elongated chat with the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings. And we can offer suggestions. I mean, the team's 2-0, but you go ahead and stream your consciousness. You're all elite football minds. If you weren't, you wouldn't be listening to 9 to noon. So iHeartRadio app, talkback feature. Anything I'm leaving out there, big boy?
No, you just hit that microphone, and as PA said, give us up to your best 30 seconds. We've done this many times before, so you know how to do it. Free iHeartRadio app. But I'm going to screen them here, and one of them we're going to play for the coach, and he's going to answer your question. So we're going to try to, if we can, on TCO Tuesdays, integrate you, the listener, into our conversations with the head coach. It's pretty sweet. Which brings us to Vikes Bites.
Vikes Bites, you say.
And that's brought to you by Thousand Hills Lifetime Grazed Grass-Fed Beef. ThousandHillsLifetimeGrazed.com. You can shop online. You can find Thousand Hills at your local co-ops, your local Coburn's locations. Thousand Hills, by the way, Clearwater, Minnesota company. They're proud sponsors of Gophers Athletics. And I want to start with some audio. Dan Orlovsky on ESPN. This is following Sunday's win against the San Francisco 49ers. I believe it was on the pregame festivities into last night's game where Kirk Cousins handled his business. We'll talk about him as well at some point. But Dan Orlovsky had this to say about Kyle Shanahan being out-coached. Let's hear that audio.
Oh, wow.